All right, so we should be live. I'm going to the YouTube page now. All right. Boom. All right, here's the link. All right, I'm gonna put it in the chat and I'm gonna drop it in the email exchange as well. So here's the link that we can put to social for them to get to our pod. And then I'm putting in the what's the name too. Our email is loading up. Okay, no, I need to go to the link to make sure it's good. All right, yeah, we good. All right, putting it in the body right now. Reply to the last one.
Let me fix my hair.
Yeah, do that. You might want to. Yeah.
Fluff it out.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you. Ain't nobody seen nothing yet. All right, Sneed, you got the link. Just send it to you. So if you look on that page, we're we up. We there. Public, close. Don't edit it, and just give me the link to the channel right there. Mute it, and just give me the channel right there. All right, bet. All right, everybody set? We good?
Yep.
All right, bet. So I want to welcome everybody. Well, before I do that, let me drop the link in my socials.
Can I share it from your page?
Yeah, yep. You should be able to do that. I'm about to do that right now. Let's see. I'm gonna drop the link. And I'll tag y'all to it too. Okay. All right, it's on the page. You can share it from there.
Okay.
Yep, it's posting now. I said 3 old friends talking big-ish. Check out the IDX Podcast featuring Dara and La Costa Nostra.
It's on your Facebook?
Yep, so you go to my Facebook, you'll see it right there. And when y'all got to share it, we'll actually start and kick everything off.
I'll make it public.
Okay, I'm gonna move this. All right, this is good. Throw it on the ground too.
I'm Twitter fingers, you know, I'm done.
Hey, I already knew.
The only thing I do online is shop, so y'all bear with me.
Look, we got 2 viewers already. I don't know if it's us, but I know we got 2 viewers. I might be one of them. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe I am too.
Okay,
balling in DC.
Right. Listen, I can't wait to hear more about that. You feel me? All right, so I'm about to kick us off. We at about at 8:10. So, all right. What up, world? Welcome to the IDX Podcast presented by Social Tech. I'm Dwayne Barnes, founder of Social Tech, a think tank that looks at the creation, consumption, and impact of technology in urban communities. This podcast is the Idea Xchange Podcast, a place where ideas are grown and where they thrive. One of my favorite artists of all time said, I might not change the world, but I can spark the mind that's going to change the world. And that person was Tupac. And that thing he was going to spark was the idea. So this is a place where we talk about what can be, what is, what should be. And this is a place where the minds meet and we can have a dope conversation. Before we get started too far, I'm going to introduce my co-host with me today. We go back like, I don't even want to say the number of years. We just go back, like before all this crazy stuff. We all from the Battle Creek, Michigan, small town. We all have big dreams and decided to take on the world in a lot of different ways. I'll get into how we caught back up. I just want to give my two co-hosts a chance to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Dara.
Okay. Hi. I was going to wave. I don't know if I should wave to people.
Yeah, that's a vibe too.
All right. My name is Dara. Right now, I currently live in the Washington, D.C. area. I started off, obviously, we all went to high school together, graduated different years. I started off at KCC, so I have a special place in my heart for community colleges and opportunities to give people, especially first-generation college graduates. And I finished my master's degree at the University of Michigan.
Okay, all right. My main man from we go even further back. My main man Sam Sneed. What's up, man? Give us an introduction.
Hey man, my name's Sam. Battle Creek born and bred. Man, I'm one of the ones that didn't expect to do nothing with itself, but I made it happen. 10-year military veteran. I'm a Western Michigan University alumnus, and I've been working with delinquent youth for the last 10 years. I'm currently a behavior interventionist at Battle Creek Central High School.
Yeah, so just so you know, you're talking to people that know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, and we're about to spin it. So just let me frame the conversation. So there was a saying long ago that small minds talk about people, medium-sized minds talk about events, and the large and interesting minds talk about ideas. And that's what we're going to do today. So our conversation today was centered around kind of the synergy that comes from social media. I follow tech. I love to look how, at how it changes our society. And the way we kind of caught up again was through social media. So over, the election cycle and into the new year, everybody was, had their perspectives on what was going on. There were a couple that really, really stood out. And when I saw what Sam posted, I was like, man, this is really good stuff. And I saw how people responded to it. And one of the many responses as we were trying to kind of make this point was Dara in there jumping in with the actual factuals. And I'm like, whoa, okay. They were trying to get in there like,
listen. If we got a couple outs and we need to get home, she batting cleanup for sure. Stay batting cleanup for me, bro. She keep it gutter with me. I like that.
And listen, even in the ones like not even decisive though, but even in the ones like I just be popping in like, okay, her comment was the one that was lit. Okay, that's the one that I'm feeling right there. That's the one no matter what it is. So it's real shit. And then we got a chance to so I reached out to him on Facebook, just a cold call pitch saying, hey man, I love what y'all doing. This is gold. I would love to capture it. And just so happened everybody was down and we here today. And so today we're going to take a moment and talk about a lot of different things. We're going to take a moment to kind of talk about, politics as usual, what's going on in that realm. You definitely can't have a conversation unless you talk about COVID and kind of our space there. We definitely want to talk about, Big Gretchen to come up, the streets is watching. And we also want to talk about just a little bit of everything. So this is our chance to kind of give our stake and give our points on what we want to. So we're going to jump into our first conversation. So, if you've been alive the past 6 months, you've been hearing, Trump versus Biden, Kamala Harris, all of this great stuff. Even they won in November. In January, Dems ran it back in Georgia and won 2 seats. I won, kind of to applaud just the effort out before we get into any of that stuff. And then after that, just things kind of been going crazy. COVID and stimulus checks, Kamala. Reparations, this whole politics as usual. So now that we got the Biden team in place, And, you know, as we mentioned earlier, and I'll let her drop that nugget on you, you know, helped in large part by African-American voters. What should the Biden administration be looking at? What should they be focusing on? And how can we get a agenda that fits for people who put them in office? And I'm going to go to Dara first, and I'm going to spin it over to Sam.
I think let me start off by saying that for a lot of people, there wasn't a choice, especially for like African Americans. I remember talking to one of my patients, and she liked Elizabeth Warren during the primary, but she said they didn't vote for Hillary, so there's no way that they're going to vote for her if we try to give her another shot, and we just can't. She said, I remember growing up, and they used to basically beat black men up on the side of the road. I remember all the threats, and so it was like a visceral fear for a lot of people, and so I think people voted out of fear, obviously, just against Donald Trump. However, you know, Joe Biden was not my first choice. I don't think I've minced any words about that. As
Right.
I've stated before, him versus Donald Trump was like physically eating a clove of garlic versus being stung by a scorpion. Okay. What is the neurotoxin? Okay. And you need some anaphylaxis for it. So let's just put that out there. But I think like going forward right now, my number one thing is reparations. As we've seen for other communities, the Jewish community, Native Americans, money is not everything, but it's something, right? And so reparations in the form of canceling all Black student loan debt. I don't care how much, you know, money you currently make. If you're a Black person and your ancestors helped build this nation, you should be able to go to free school for free like most Native Americans. Monthly stipend or UBI, especially for those people in the lower, you know, economic quintiles. And also mortgages and a credit score reset. Because there's a lot of predatory capitalism that has been exhibited towards Black people. And so for me going forward, that's like the number one thing I want to see. You know, Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren just held a press conference today about canceling at least $50,000 of student loan debt. I think that's a good start. So going forward, I'm just all about the economic policy because you can never take racism out of somebody's heart. But let me tell you something, I can be living up on a mansion on a hill and have a gate blocking my property.
Big facts. Big facts. And I feel you on that. Sam Snead, you know, what you feeling as far as one, reparations, but two, one, what Biden should be on, and then two, what's your take on reparations?
I mean, first and foremost, you already know me, dog. I'm prison reform to the T.
Yep.
I read a stat in the it was from the New York Daily News from like 1999. It said that 20 million, however many people it is in Africa, they got 20,000 people incarcerated in the whole country. And then you got America. We in America we got 20% of prisoners, basically.
Yep.
1 out of every 3 Black men is on some form of probation, parole, or
some kind of papers. Yep.
And for me, it's like, bro, like I've been on probation before, misdemeanor probation, but I don't have any felonies, and I feel like that's a blessing. I just got off the phone with my best friend before this call. You know, like I told y'all previously, he's doing 6 years in the state facility. He over there in Jackson. He dealing with the quarantine, and you know his rights being violated, and you know it's a lot of stuff going on right now. But
big dog, real talk.
Just feel like, you know, it's time for some serious prison reform. What I would like to see. The Democrats can get my vote the next 4 years simply if they even up the ratio between crack cocaine and crack. And cocaine, I mean. They do that, they got my vote for the next 4 years. As far as reparations go, I'm about that. But I feel like it should be structured. It should be structured because I feel like, I mean, you know, like right now, you know, for some of us it was the pandemic, but you know, for some people it was the bandemic.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? They ran it up. But you also see the choices that they making and what they doing with their money. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it should be more structured, like you're giving property. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it shouldn't just be a monetary amount because I feel like people make bad financial decisions terribly. And I think that's one thing about, you know, Black people right now. We are what they say we do $3 trillion a year in spending.
Yeah, was it 1.3 trillion? Yep,
Yeah,
bigger than
$1.3 trillion we spend a year. Like, we literally can turn anybody up. Like, if we feeling you as Black people, we're gonna turn up your brand. So I just feel like we need to start doing more for ourselves to make it more relevant and, you know, more feasible for us to be able to leverage our culture, because I feel like we give our culture away. I feel like we're the only culture who give our culture away for free.
You know what?
I think that's true. We're the only culture that gives our culture away for free. I think that hip hop has a lot to do with that. I think it's because it's influenced so many people around the world. However, I'd like to push back on the fact that Black people need to be taught to be more responsible. There's a whole bunch of white people that are irresponsible. I mean, Jerry Springer irresponsible with their money. I've never seen a white capitalist tell another white capitalist, "Oh no, don't go buy that yacht. That's irresponsible." So if somebody wants to take $10,000 and get their custom J's or whatever, I say give us the money because our ancestors worked for it, and let's talk about what was going on later on. That's exactly how I feel.
But I feel like it could be
that way, but people are reckless with their money all the time, and nobody checks white people about it.
I'm not concerned with white people when it comes to reparations. I'm talking about and how it can help us, because I feel like if we structure it the right way, I feel like we will put a bigger impact on poverty, generational wealth, stuff like that. You're right. We definitely earned it. But let us make it work for us. You know what else should come with reparations?
What's that?
Clear our credit.
Credit reset. Yeah.
Clear Black. Hey, listen. Clear Black people credit. Let's make that work.
And like the real talk.
Utilities. Little Jaquan done got a 543.
Exactly.
3 years old. That's my biggest piece. Keep them babies' names off them utility bills.
And you really speaking real talk on that tip, because if you think about the conditions that credit is kind of built from, and how kind of society have kind of dictated a lot of before you even got a chance to get going, kind of where you stand, a credit reset is not a problem. So I stand for reparations 100%. I stand for it in a lot of different ways. I think that I have two kind of philosophies on it. One, I'm like that. Give us the money. Listen, if people blow it, our ancestors made it anyway. You can't, that it's old. No matter how people spend it, it's old. That's one point. But then two, I think that there could be like, even if, and I might be giving too much credit to fiscal responsibility, but I even think, given our demographic and given what we know now, even with what we've seen, kind of trying to get financially literate, I think the largest percentage, or I think there will be a small minority that will blow it all. But I think by and large, you will see a lot different kind of moves to be made. And I would love to see what that would look like. Now, as far as Biden and Harris, they got a laundry list. But one thing that I say outside of economic policy, which is where, I think is most important. I think that there was a clear message this year during the campaign. People went outside during the summertime. They marched. They showed up at the ballot box saying that they wanted to see a criminal justice reform. And for the people who turned out, now we all turned out and did our things, but there was a clear call for criminal justice reform, and I think that's where we start. I know you got to get COVID out the way, but that's something that has to continue to move forward, because especially as you think about and we'll get to a little bit more of this later, marijuana legislation look like it's going to be something that may be passing, more opportunities for people to interact with the cops in a way that you don't want them to. So we got to find a way to do some reform. I did want to ask about this, and I just want to talk about it just for a minute. So, we got this whole Trump impeachment coming up. What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on it? Should we be doing it? Is it too late? Should we be moving forward? What's your thoughts on the Trump impeachment? And then we'll kind of spin to the next topic.
In my eyes, it's an exercise of futility, man. They just going through the motions. I mean, what are we really going to get from this? And to be honest with you, I'm going to keep it 100. I ain't really mad at Trump no more, man. He pardoned some brothers that I wanted to see free. So I ain't really mad at dog no more. And He really, and let's keep it a buck. Like, let's get.
It's like I think like low key though, like bruh suffering already. He out of the power he wanted to have. He mad he can't get on Twitter. But I will say this though. One thing I will say as we talk about it, I think it's important that they do it because it just when you flip it to the other side. Let's say I was doing something I ain't had no business. And then I left a job or something. They still gonna come back and say, hey, you did some shit. You gotta account for the stuff you stole. You gotta you traded non-disclosure information, and you still gotta deal with that. So I think just or we heard a story. Somebody had to do what they had to do to survive, and then they stopped. Years later, they got caught up in something, and now they got to pay the price for what they did before. So we see it in our society all the time. So I think it's an exercise in futility. One, because they said they were going to acquit them, but I think that everybody else gotta be accountable for what they do. So I think that ain't gonna be a part of it too.
The problem is he's not going to be accountable for what he's done,
and that's the thing, right?
That's why it's an exercise of futility because he won't be held accountable. It's just they going through the motions.
I think that the Democratic Party has to do it because the MSNBC, based large in part, wants to see it.
Basically.
These people like salads in DC and New York talking about how wrong Donald Trump is. We all know that, but we also know this for a fact. If you're a Republican currently, you cannot win a primary without Donald Trump. Without some sort of allegiance to him. And you probably can't win a general election with him. But you got to get to the primary process first. And so nobody's willing to spend that much political capital in order to vote against their own interests. And so that's what the biggest issue is. No Republicans, they won't get the 2/3 vote in Congress. Everybody knows it's just not going to happen. But the Democratic Party has to do it and go forward. I would rather see the time being spent on something else.
Something we talked about.
Yeah. This is going to tie the Senate up for a while, and everybody knows Donald Trump is not going to get a conviction. I think this whole thing also shows just how fragile our democracy is. The president has no guardrails. The Constitution doesn't. I mean, he should be in prison right now. Everyone knows if you yell fire in a crowded theater, we should be locked up on site. And don't let us be in federal property, automatic 20 years. Y'all know. And Donald Trump sending people down the Capitol, breaking down windows with gates.
And doing all killing cops. Listen, they the Blue Lives Matter. Killing cops.
They don't really care about that. That was never.
Hey, listen,
yours.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, them boys was thugging. Them boys was thugging.
You know what? I feel you on that. I wonder, or I'll say this and then we'll move on. I don't want to say I wish, but that privilege, that courage, that stick-to-itiveness, I would love to see more of that from other demographics as well. You know what I'm saying?
What happened to the NFAC when they came with their guns? How they charged the leader with all them charges?
Facts. I mean, look, even going back to the Panthers, they stormed the Capitol in San Francisco in California. They changed the gun laws the next week.
Overnight.
So I mean, that's real. So we've seen it happen, but we saw outcomes different. Then we saw what happened, after that. So I think
guns. That's part of the That's part of the.
Hey, listen,
that's a different conversation.
John Gotti would be proud of. Donald Trump.
Real talk though. Like
he would have told him, "You La Cosa Nostra."
Hey, facts. George Washington would be proud. Thomas Jefferson, all them. That's their saying. And listen, not to be, First Amendment, we can say, all that what we want to say, but the way he moved was similar to how the founding fathers of this country moved, and that's why people love what he did. He did it with, and I'll say this, and I'll get ready to move. His domestic policy, I wasn't for. Some of the foreign policy around some of those things, I wasn't too mad at, just to be honest, during the entire thing. But his domestic and his social policy was terrible. It sucked. But some of his foreign stuff, some of the economic stuff, especially with China, I think was not as bad as people try to make it out to be. But I think that's kind of a segue to the next conversation as we think of, China. Since last March, we've been dealing with coronavirus. It's been a part of our politics. It's been a part of our life. It's affected us in so many different ways, and we're going to talk about it in a lot of different ways. What I want to talk about now is, one, what was the impact of COVID in your circles and where you were in your professional circles, your familial circles, your organizational circles, and then also, vaccine or no? How do you feel about the vaccine as far as it being administered, the rollout? Should we in Black America be taking it? Well, how do we want to talk about this coronavirus, or how can we put our spin on this coronavirus conversation around those things? And I'll go to Sneed first, and then I'll come back to Derek.
No, we're going ladies first. Ladies first.
Okay, I ain't mad at that. I'll just be bouncing them back and forth.
Yeah, we're gonna be gentlemen.
I ain't mad at that.
So the first question about COVID-19 was how has it impacted me personally and professionally?
Yeah, personally, professionally, in the community. Just how have you seen it through your vantage point? Okay,
so I went to KCC and I did their physical therapist assistant program there. So a lot of my patients, honestly, PG County, where I work at in Maryland, has a large population of Black people. And the people that I've seen that have the worst outcomes from COVID-19 are Black women. Older Black women who normally have obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. It has really wreaked havoc on them. My first COVID-19 patient, when we tested her oxygen levels in her room, she lived in a mid-rise. They were in the 60s. I don't even know how she was alive. Normal is 90% or above. Whoa. They sent her without any oxygen. She got COVID-19 at the hospital, so it was an acquired infection. They sent her home basically. Didn't give her any of the materials that she needed. They were just sending people home and discharging them. So that broke my heart because she just kept crying when we had to call the ambulance because we were so worried about our oxygen levels. So I think for me, it's been very difficult seeing people that should have never been discharged home currently, maybe my auntie or my grandmother or whatever, that don't have any resources. And think about this. Metro access, which is what gets a lot of elderly people around to and from their doctor's appointments, to and from, little whatever appointments, they have vouchers for them. They were shut down because of COVID-19. A lot of these people were afraid to death to do get an Uber or Lyft because they were worried about sanitation. Right. And all these people, because of poor intergenerational wealth in our communities, their kids are still working too. They're essential workers.
Facts.
So if mom is staying home for 8 hours by herself, has low oxygen, has all these other issues. Regarding the vaccination, I'm a fan of science. However, I'm concerned that because of the mutability of the type of virus that COVID-19 is, that these vaccinations won't prove to be as effective as we currently think that they are. And I think the evidence is already pointing to that. And I think it was a rush process. And so whenever you have a rush process, especially within communities that have been discriminated against before medically, Henrietta Lacks happened right here in Maryland, in Baltimore. She was at Johns Hopkins for a very long time in the colored ward unit. And you're going to have some issues. So I don't necessarily think it's a huge issue with the rollout, because I think that's getting better. But I think a very small percentage of Black people are going to end up taking this vaccination.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, let's about Corona. I don't know no crackheads that had Corona yet. Let the record reflect.
Are they getting tested?
The record reflect that first and foremost. I have not seen one fiend with Corona. So whatever that means, take that for whatever it is.
Bro, you sick, bro.
Secondly, I literally lost my career over Corona though. Like the facility that I was running, twofold. One of it was one of the nurses had snapped and jumped on the kids. So, we had lost our license to be acute and deal with acute kids. But the other part of it was the director of nursing lost her license to nurse because of how they handled COVID. Mm-hmm. I came from Michigan to Ohio to that facility, and we was already screening and all that before. You had to come to the med center and get screened before you went to the floor. So when I got there, I'm telling them like, hey, we need to be doing COVID.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like we need to be social distancing, and they tried to play me like I was just an idiot and I didn't know what I was talking about, and just because you was doing okay, cool. But then, when the director of nursing got that letter from licensing and got called to that courtroom, and she lost her license. So I've been directly affected by it. More importantly, when it comes to COVID, I think my biggest concern is the effect it's having on the high school athletes right now. My heart goes out to a parent. My heart goes out to the parents who have a kid that had an outstanding junior year athletically, and they might have got a lot of interest from some colleges and universities, but a lot of that was riding on how they performed their senior year. And some of these student athletes aren't getting to display their talent in the proper context. So that's my concern about it and thought on it. Far as the vaccine, ever since I watched the Tuskegee experiment, I'll never ever vaccinate unless I have to. I'm a 2-time war veteran, so I've taken malaria shots and TB vaccinations to go over there. But dig this though. Now, if I take a TB test, because of the vaccinations I had in the military from a TB test, I automatically come back positive from a TB test. So I automatically have to go to the chest X-ray part to verify that I don't have it. So it's just a lot of interesting dynamics in this country with testing, and African Americans don't have a very good track record in this country with vaccination. So I get, but I also understand it's anybody, it's your choice. Whatever choice you make, nobody should judge you for your choice. You hear so much rhetoric going back and forth about this person did this or this person did that, or they stupid for this, they stupid for that. I currently have 2 jobs. So both of my jobs offered the vaccination. I denied it both times. The second, when I denied it at my non-school job, when I denied it, he said that, well, because you denied it, when other people get vaccinated and we're not wearing masks anymore, you'll have to still wear a mask. Gladly. That's probably the least effective way to hurt myself. So yeah, I'm down with that.
I feel that. So COVID, changed my world. It's almost a year since I actually got sick. In March of last year. And I had what they said was mild. They wouldn't even see me. I had to do telehealth, and I was sick for like 2 weeks. And it was right when everybody was passing, and kind of fitting the bill. You age you are, the demographic you from, and people thought I was out of here. And by the grace of God, I wasn't, and I'm alive, and it's been a great time since then. But I say it did change kind of my how I move. Like, I've been fortunate enough to work remotely, and kind of hunker down. And since last year, it's been very minimal movement for me, just because I'm taking it serious. But I think that, around the vaccine and the bigger kind of picture around COVID, I think that for our community, it was a nightmare because health disparities are all, where we land in typical health outcomes are bad. How COVID attacked the system aligned completely with that. So it was already a mess. One thing I want to see as far as policy, though, and I think I think there's more on the bone from what the commission did here in the state. I think that they missed, a way to say, okay, I think one of the big problems we have outside of food deserts and stuff like that is just kind of proper introduction and education around food at young ages. I think that, we choose to eat the stuff that we eat, more than likely because we haven't had a chance to have a positive experience with it from a young age. Outside of the fact that McDonald's is right around the corner in every neighborhood, the C-store is right around the corner. You can go get you all that crazy stuff. So it kind of hit where a lot of stuff is. So I think we need to do a lot around, there should be a lot of policy around finding out ways to, help our community, and we can do it intra-community, by just, help with the food issue that we have. And I won't go on. I want to hear what people got to say to that. And we can go on, a little bit further on the COVID topic.
I think it's primarily a housing issue, which could also deal with food. Even before COVID-19, I think it was like 70% of the children in Chicago that were diagnosed with asthma were Black kids.
Yep.
HUD sponsored a program actually to go in and show people how to change their air filters, cleaning products, things like that to use. If you look at the areas hardest hit, like the Bronx in Chicago and even Detroit was one of the worst places to be homeless even before COVID-19. You have people living on top of people. You have many generations living in one home because in mostly democratically controlled cities, they have made the rent so ridiculously expensive that people can't afford to live, not independently at least. And so to me, if you're going to talk about COVID-19, then why aren't you doing like what Austin, Texas did and take some of the money away from the police department and house people in hotels? That's the best way. Give people somewhere where to live. And guess what? They won't be out of the streets spreading around COVID-19, but they don't have to be stacked on top of each other. And with all these commissions, of a commission, with the Black person, with the LGBTQ, with all these people, they never address housing. That's the root of a lot of problems in America and a lot of the reason why people keep getting sick continuously. Because what are you going to do? Vaccinate somebody on the street and say, we're all this together, give them a little I voted or I vaccinate sticker, send them back out in the same street corner to live, but we're all in this together? It's hard for me to buy that anything is substantive unless people actually put money towards it. And the thing with COVID-19 is it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, it can still affect you the same and it can still kill you. So I hope that some housing policy, like putting people in hotels who are chronically homeless, like a lot of veterans have issues with homelessness too. You know what I'm saying? I hope that that's addressed finally.
You know, that's a good point. You got a take on that, Sam?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, it's crazy because I'm one of those like you can't help who you love type of people, and I got a lot of love for the city of Kalamazoo. That's currently my home. That's like that's my second home, but the city really has taken the initiative on helping the homeless people. They had this spot called Tent City, where it was like a bunch of tents set up, but you've seen a lot of African Americans out there just helping people. I seen one girl post like, "How do you start a nonprofit?" And it was just a lot of positive energy around that in the city of Kalamazoo, and I greatly appreciate them for that. And recently, one of the tent cities has been the residents were removed because they took a Nights In and turned it into a homeless shelter.
Oh, word.
So it's a lot of hey man, as far as policy and leadership in Kalamazoo, man, I got a lot of love for them, man. They just passed the housing ordinance for fair housing in the city. It's a lot of positive things going on. A lot of people doing a lot of positive things in Kalamazoo when it comes to what I call even in the playing field, and that's just basically giving African Americans the same socioeconomic opportunities as white people.
That's facts. I think you really kind of hit me to something. You say think about it as a housing issue, and if you look at it, outside of health, the number one thing that people were having a problem with was either keeping housing or finding housing. Even with the moratorium on evictions in our state and nationally, that's only dealing with the population who's fortunate enough to have somewhere to live, to be on that list. And even as we see, weather blast through, from west to the northeast, even here in Detroit, I think homelessness is, I want to say, I think it's such a major issue in our city that I think that I won't say it. I'll say this. It's an issue that we definitely have to address, but we have to be intentional about it because, especially in this environment, if you don't got no hustle in you, you're fired, you're laid off, government didn't call you back for your subsidy or what you're supposed to get from them, away from being in that situation if you ain't got no good family. So
definitely. But the other part of it is, that's one of the ugly truths about this country. Like that's something we need to be honest about.
Facts.
Like we've never truthfully dealt with that as a country. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they say whatever they say about, you got your civil responsibilities or whatever as a American citizen, but at the end of the day, we've never really dealt with that. And that's something that we need to truthfully deal with. And I think it needs to be a proactive approach to it, not a reactive approach to it. Oh, once you're already homeless, that's a reaction.
Yep, it's too late.
The proactive approach is you get put in this pot. Once you get to a certain point financially, you get put in this pot. And we wrap our arms around you and we do what we need to do as a community resourcefully to tap you back in with the right resources to make sure that you get back on your feet and you get moving. But another thing that we don't want to talk about as Black people is this: young African American homelessness. The kid that's 18 and you need to get out.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We are one of the only cultures that kick our kids out at 18 and think that they're mentally and emotionally and financially prepared to deal with this world. And that's just not true. It's just not true.
That's a great segue into our next conversation. I'm so glad you hit it with that. You know, as we think about, you know, our culture by and large, you know, and I want to be respectful of how we attack this conversation, but I want us to talk about it too. You know, in recent years, I think Blackness has been a cachet that people have been cashing in on. But I'll frame it two ways. One, I understand that there's a diaspora of people in this country that have, or in this world, from the motherland to, you know, the slave trade, to where Blackness is in a lot of places. The majority of people in this country have a darker hue. One, and since Africa is the largest continent, with people who went around the world outside of slavery, Blackness made its way everywhere around this globe. Now, I will say that as diaspora conversation, but I also think there's another conversation around, you know, African American Blacks, American kind of native Blacks, ADOS kind of American descendant of slave Blackness, that I think is the catapult for everything we talked about earlier, for hip hop, for entertainment, for culture, for politics, as we saw with swing voting and all this other stuff. But I think that sometimes, while it is important to talk about the diaspora, and we all Black, and you can be Afro Latino, you can be Afro, whatever you want to be, but then when it's time to hold the bag, you know, our culture of those who are African American, you know, ADOS kind of people, born here, your parents born here kind of people, kind of get left with the bag. Even when you see like how certain roles are casted. Yeah, you in our diaspora, you're an African brother and sister, but are you the right person to be playing this role? Or when they say, okay, well, this is a Black-owned business, and we know that this person is coming in just as the face, and it isn't really, but it's Black there. Even with what we've seen in our democratic politics, our first Black president had a white mama and an African father. As much as I got love for Obama, that don't really look like me or my kids. Even with Kamala, with her racial situation, but then she's put front as being the first Black. So what, you know, where will we see the people who aren't from diasporic Blackness get a chance to take advantage of this opportunity? And that's kind of what I want to throw out to y'all. We saw a conversation around Blackness, and then we can take it more down into the culture. So what's your thoughts on what I just put out there? And we'll do the ladies first, as we mentioned the last time.
It's always going to be ladies first. Look at that smile.
What's the question?
So this around Blackness.
Look at her.
Okay. I mean, I can keep riffing if you.
I can answer. You want me to talk about Kamala? You want me to talk about my overall thoughts?
Whatever piqued your interest in all that I said that you got to take on.
So I follow some like ADOS groups on Facebook, and they like really go hard. So like, I don't feel like I'm full ADOS. Like
I'm not full anything though.
Huh?
I said it'd be tough to be full anything.
Yeah, because I just feel like that.
Hold on, real quick. What is ADOS? Y'all gonna have to put me here. I'm not here.
Oh, African descendants of slavery. So
I'm part of that too. Then I'm part of a couple of those on Facebook.
Yvette Carnell, Tone Talks in the group.
Yeah, they go sick. They go sick.
So I can appreciate their message, especially about reparations and moving like almost like a Black Power economic aspect, like of the Black Power agenda going forward, or Black nationalism. However, I think that if you look in the past about successful movements, even the Panthers were a multicultural movement because they understand we're only so much of the population.
And they had to. They were compromised, so they had to turn as well. That's another reason. I
think even before that, like, so I hate to say it, but like if you look at it, like some well-intentioned white people like Bernie Sanders will go harder for you than Black people, when the Black Detroit City Council people that just voted to use facial recognition technology and voted against, to go against Detroit will breathe. So in my opinion, it's not all just about skin color being Black. In my opinion, as being a darker skinned Black woman, I feel like even within the Black community, I've experienced a lot of people telling me I'm pretty for being
You know
what I'm saying? I have my
Go.
sister is very light. And so growing up, sometimes guys would like make, comparisons between her and myself. She's a beautiful woman. I feel like I'm a beautiful woman too. Black people come in all shades. It's like, I feel like because of the way I talk sometimes and sometimes who I hung around growing up, I got a lot of, flack from Black women. I remember walking down the hallway in WK, they used to call me a black bitch. Okay. And those same women that hated on me one time had to serve me at Burger King and I made her go get me extra ketchup. I'm not even playing. So it's like, I feel
funny
like
how things, funny how time flies. Yeah, funny how time flies.
That's what I said. Make the fries hotter. You need this job. Don't play. So it's just, I feel like I don't say no names. I'm a lady, but I did make her say I just think that there's so much infighting with the Black community. I root for a lot of Black people, but I root for Black people that really have a Black agenda. I think Kamala's past is troubling, but I also think she's a chameleon. So I think she'll move with the times, and I think that she understands the time is now for a lot of Black people to get a lot of stuff we've been asking for. So that's what I'll say about her. I'm not going to say anything else because I do have love for Black women, so it's hard for me to criticize them to the nth degree.
All right, Sneed, your take.
So, first of all, they skin kind of light because their ancestors was raped by somebody white. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's start in the words of my boy Styles P.
I was to say, was that the goal?
Let's be clear why their hue is the way their hue is to begin with, first of all. Secondly, shout out to Black women. Like 100%, like 150% shout out to Black women. Number one, as a man that's never dated outside of my race.
Facts.
I'm definitely pro sister to the T. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, as a Black man watching the evolution of the Black woman the last 10 to 15 years, some stuff that I totally disagree with, but some stuff that I 100% agree with. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like you see a lot of stuff on social media about Black women, pointing out how men degrade them, but then they do stuff to degrade themselves. So it's like, you got to be real with yourself before you can be real with anybody else. Far as Kamala Harris go, y'all already know, like, to a certain extent how I feel. I'm more in the wait and see mode. I'm one of those that feel like, she leveraged her Blackness to be able to get where she goes and where she is now. And I hear, number one, I respect her hustle because I hear you hustling that up.
Facts.
But secondly, was that spot earned or given? And I think it was given. I don't think her place in our culture was earned. I think it was given. I can't remember which she was getting sworn in.
Yep.
And she identified as an Asian American woman in that swearing. I think it was whatever the last position she was sworn in as before she took presidency. She mentioned it was a snippet in there about being Black, but for the most part, it was acknowledging that. I think she got a tough road ahead of her. I think both of them do. I think Biden and Kamala Harris got a lot of proving to do. They can't be an administration of talk.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the time for that. They gotta strike while the iron hot. They gotta take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of them. And that's one thing about, the other thing is about that is being in control. They got the control they need right now to make whatever they need to happen. So I feel like, I'm more in the wait and see mode. I do think we as Black people give our culture away too easily.
I do agree with that.
I think that, anybody who act like they part way Black, we can't wait to, dial them in and tap them in and give them all the codes to the door, and you know what I'm saying? The 2-knock rule, all that. They down with all that. But it's a lot of black people. What's dog name on CNN? Was it Chris?
Yep.
Huh?
Is it Chris Cuomo?
Hey, I would trade him for a gang of black people.
Yeah.
If we got the Negro League votes, I'd trade him for a lot of these mulatto brothers running around here acting like they
not mulatto though
for the culture, and they not.
I think we make a good point, especially I think it's so cool to be black until it's time to be like it's like everybody. I want to dance, I want to have pledged, I want to do all of this stuff. But when it's time for you to be on the other side of a gun, you know what I'm saying? Because you got pulled over for just driving. Well, maybe not. So my thing is, I take the wait and see approach, and I take the wait and see approach as well because one, I think that there's a few key pieces that Kamala is going to be important for, just as far as the Senate Republicans not wanting to move, that she can really make a move on, and I think that'll be dope. And as far as Biden and them. I think, and it's typically how things typically work politically. You running on a short window anyway. Usually, one party wins the presidency, and then in 2 years, the House or the Senate goes the other way, and then you kind of locked in into the next election. So you got this time to do what you want to do. Now, one thing I'm gonna say as far as some of their policy that I'm not interested. Well, I'll save that for our next one. So I'll also say this. I want to throw this in before we get too far away. So over the 2020 election. Especially at the end, we saw actors like not actors. We saw players jump in the game like Ice Cube with his plan, wanting to meet with Trump and wanting to meet with Biden. We saw Puff kind of take his arm in and say, "Well, I want to do this." Since then, I don't know. I haven't been following them much. Have we seen anything from them? And what are our thoughts on kind of celebrity political kind of arrangements that we've seen happen in the past?
Well, the Biden administration did call Ice Cube. I just saw that today.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm. They want to meet with him for the next week or so about his agenda for Black America. I don't think it's because they're, altruistic. I think it's because they know that Black men are increasingly going away from the Democratic Party. I saw a lot of Black men that I talked to, especially a lot of African men that have their own businesses, that they were like, well, we don't like Trump, but we don't like Biden, but hell, Trump won't raise my taxes, and I got my own business. And so that's where a lot of Black men are. And, there was a lot to do.
Wasn't it like 10% of Black men, something like that, voted Trump? 8%, something like that?
20% this last time.
20%, okay, 20%, yep.
It's like 5% every year start going towards the Republican Party. And so I, for one, was glad that Ice Cube stepped up. I think that he had more of a concrete program than I've seen a lot of Democratic politicians, even the CBC. I don't know what the CBC's been. I don't know what the CBC's been doing. I thought to myself, in DC, I go to the CBC every single year, go to those dinners, wear a cute outfit, you know what I'm saying, get a couple numbers, and I leave, and I was like, what are we talking about?
What did we just do?
Absolutely nothing. I think it was very interesting, and I think this goes back to the crab in the barrel ideology for Black people, that so many Black people were, especially a lot of Black women, were coming for Ice Cube, whose moniker is a melting block, versus coming for Joe Biden, who's been in the Senate for 40 years and really didn't do anything for Black people. So many Black women were taking up for Biden, like, why are you asking these questions now? And my thinking was, how come the media didn't ask these questions during the primary process? Because they dropped the ball on their job. And so I hope he keeps on pushing. And Cube don't really give up, as they say. He just don't care. And so he's the perfect spokesperson, because he will go silent on you like, hey, didn't I just say that? You know what I'm saying? I'm here for it.
All right.
I like Cube. I didn't like the presentation.
Okay.
I didn't like the presentation of it. I felt like he could have went about it differently. Was he wrong for doing it? No. And that's the thing about, us as Black people. You'll never be able to please us
at all.
We always gonna be unhappy about something. So you know what I'm saying? You take it with a grain of salt. Far as the rest of the celebrities, I'm rocking with the Carters. I'm a fan of how the Carters go about taking care of their business, man. They don't do a lot of talking, a lot of beating of their chests, or none of that. You know what I'm saying? They just putting on for the culture, continuously putting on for the culture. I feel like we as Black people need to evaluate a lot of stuff right now.
Facts.
I feel like we need to be patient. I feel like we shouldn't step in any one direction seriously. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we really, really, really gotta make this next 4 years count for us.
Facts.
It can't be about nobody else for us. Excuse my French, but fuck racism. We can't let that we can no longer allow that to be a barrier. And I think we need to take a much more serious approach in education. Because I feel like we don't take education seriously enough right now. It's a lot of brothers and sisters running around here that's grown and can't read and write. So I think we need to leverage this to be able to get some community centers where it can be, it's a one-stop shop for it's the kid that's kicked out of school that can't go to school for 5 days, you come here. It's the girl that's pregnant at 14, 15 years old, you come here. It's the kid that got trauma from his parents being involved in drug raids and him being involved in drug raids at a young age, you come here. It's the prisoner who just got out of prison, who has nowhere to be paroled to, who needs to be connected with the proper services to be able to get back on his feet. I think this addresses recidivism rates. It's a ball of serious things that we need to take on as African Americans, and in this next 4 years, we got to slam dunk it. We can't take it lightly. I think STEM education needs to be a big part of what we need to do. I think when you talk about Black kids with trauma in school settings, and you talk about social emotional learning, I think that needs to be involved in what we do. But I think for us to be able to deal with it in a proper context, we need to take another serious approach of bringing performing arts back into the schools. It's a lot of things that we as a culture of African Americans we need to deal with right now, and I don't want it to be overlooked by a stimulus or a
facts
or a income tax rebate, or I can't properly educate my kids because I gotta work. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things, like we got to be real as Black people right now with ourselves. Like it's a lot of things that a lot of these wounds are self-inflicted.
You beat me to it.
We bring it on ourselves, and we got to be, and it's time to be honest about it and be honest about where we want to go in the next 4 years before we ever get to the point to where we want to hold a president and the vice president accountable.
Hey, may I just ask a follow-up question to what you just said, because you work with so many youth? I was just listening to a speech the other day. Dr. King was giving it like the ills of society, the evils of society. And back in Chicago, back in the day when he stayed there for a minute, they actually had a program that was teaching adults how to read, and there was like a transitional job program. So my thinking is, politicians move so slowly. There's so many people now dedicated to Black Lives Matter or something. Do you think that there's a space where maybe people like yourself or others can mentor young people, and then you could have some sort of business alliance saying, okay, we're going to mentor them, we're going to teach them job skills or whatever, and then out of our program, you're going to take X amount of people?
Great follow-up.
Listen, man, it's so crazy. I just had a long conversation with the head principal at Battle Creek Central about that today. And he actually, one thing that the feedback I gave him is that they do a terrible job of advertising. Because Battle Creek Central already has STEM education. They have shaped the academies into HHS. So if you want to go into healthcare, the academy for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders is Dara. You would go crazy in there. Like right now, they have a whole part of the school that's set up like a hospital.
And then you can go right over to KCC and finish it. Go over to KCC and finish it.
They got it, bro. It's a part where it's like an ambulance, the back of an ambulance. So like an ambulance back
Wow.
into the deck, the deck of a hospital. They got that in there. It's 12 to 14 hospital beds where it's oxygen and different simulations.
Yeah.
They got the BIT, which is like business engineering and IT academy. So if you want to go in that direction, they got 40 to 50 businesses in the building a year, mentoring kids and talking to kids. We don't hear about that. All we hear about is the negative things that happen in Battle Creek Central. So my feedback to the principal today, as we was walking through the school and he was showing me this, was we do a terrible job of advertising. But it's definitely a place for that. I mean, me personally, like my end goal is to have a men's leadership mentoring conference where it's a 5-day conference and we isolate, and you got Black men of business, and you isolate them with a kid, a teenager that wants to go into that profession. And you go with them, you go through a series of classes with them throughout the week and workshops to help develop that. That's my goal. That's one of my goals, is to make that happen within the next year.
You know what? I'm so excited about what we just talked about, because for people who, you know, are listening to this or watch this and say, well, you know, what are some policies that we can change or we can get behind that can, like, these are the things that we need to be going to our city council with, our state legislature, our Congress people, like these, especially now, because one thing we know that in the last, 20 years, African Americans have attained more degrees than we've had in our past. Our women are starting the most businesses. We have people who can provide these services and will do it at the levels that we haven't seen done. And now if the Democrats believe in this kind of stuff, like they say, that's where the pipeline for the funding need to be going. Like that's real, that's facts. And if you think about it, even like, and one thing I always like to liken back to the Panthers too, and I think what nobody I don't say nobody took, but what I took from it was, if you look at their programming, it really like isolated around, you know, different cities. It was always around political education. It was around jobs. It was around building hospitals. It was around all the parts of our society that we need to fix, not necessarily running to go get elected. Because once you get elected, you don't have the capital to run an agenda. You got to do the agenda what they gave you. So I think when we think about how we as a community can start to solve some of our own ills, like we're looking at each other. We got the most talented we've been as far as educational wise to solve these problems. And I think that now, like Sneak was saying, now is the time to do that.
You got to think about our hustle. Think about our hustle. What we've endured. Think about that. Like, bro, like we in the rain with our hoodie on. It's raining on us. It's a storm. It's a storm. We know we starting from behind. We've always started from behind. But you know what? It's to the point in my life where I like it like that. You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, I like to walk in the room and be doubted. Because in a few months, y'all going to be eating out my hand.
Facts.
Because when it comes to this,
I call it the Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard. Yep. You don't even know I'm about to walk in here and do that.
When it comes to this, it ain't too many greater than us. Like, so imagine how we could operate with the level playing field. And let's be 100. Like, let's be real. The Capitol building didn't get stormed because they didn't want us to impeach the president.
Facts.
The Capitol building was stormed because Caucasian Americans feel those liberties that they've always been able to exercise, the white privilege, it is slipping away. It is being exposed. It's being televised now. They're being exposed for who they truly are right now. And they hate it. They hate it.
And they're gonna have to hate it for a long time because time ain't changing. You know what I'm saying?
So now look though. As much as we want them to be different, it's time to appropriate ourselves right now too.
I think that I also, something that I appreciate this summer, although I have issues where all the money went from Black Lives Matter. I don't.
Oh, you know what you're going to say.
You know where somebody got a Bentley.
And, you know, I'm going to leave that for a different conversation because local chapters of Black Lives Matter are really doing the work, but they really haven't gotten money from the national organization. I will have to say, if you even look at things in the past, like the startings of institutions, even, what is that? Charles R. Drew, the Drew University Medical School in California, that was started after Watts riots, right?
Yep.
So I never advocate violence, but there's something to be said about going into the street and demanding certain things of your political leaders. I don't think we would be having these conversations right now if we didn't have a tumultuous summer of unrest. I don't think people were talking about making a national database of standards for police misconduct. They wouldn't be talking about those things. And so this, and I went to the march in Washington too. This has just further, I guess, put in place in my mind. We got to go back to just the basics of protesting, but protesting with policies in mind. Like making our demands known and heard and being unapologetic about it because every other race has done that. And I feel like that's why they've gotten ahead. I feel like kind of our generation got a little lazy and we were relying too much on our ancestors and their progress. And it's time for us to pick up the mantle now. They're elderly. They can't get out in the streets because of COVID-19. A lot of them are staying at home. So it's time for us to step up and to make sure that the next generation is doing okay.
Well, listen, those fire last words from my panelists today. I'm so excited about this. This was everything I thought it would be. I want the people who watch this, when you see this video, throw us a comment, give us a like. If this is something you want to see more of, let us know. But I do want to do this real quick thing. I like to end the podcast with just like a final thought, something just real quick that either you're thinking about, you're working on, you want to bring to the table, an idea that you want to share, and I'll give it to Dara, I'll give it to Sneed, and I'll get a final word, and then we'll be out of here for the night.
So I'm part of NAGA, which is basically a group that is advocates for Black people to have their own guns, and so basically they also advocate for Black people to form small circles. So I think it's like 6 or 7 people. They said that there's this. I don't know if it was like a psychological principle or studies have been shown that if you have like 6 or 7 people and you're on the same team, whether your town gets flooded, whether there's a tornado, natural disasters, something happens to you or your family, you need, medically, you're not doing okay. You have point people to contact. And I would like to see just on a local level, Black people start forming their own groups. So like, as the late, great Nipsey Hussle said, what good is your circle if everybody depends on you? So, so you need to have kind of people, not just with equal skill sets, but people that you feel like you can pull from that can also help build you up. Because I feel like so much, even growing up being a Black woman, everything is about being independent. But there's nothing wrong with depending on other people. That is how you survive as a human being. And so I would like to see these kind of small groups coalesce with people from different backgrounds, really building up each other. Because I feel like other races have done it all the time with bodegas, community stores, whatever. Families pool their money together and work together. And I think like on a microscopic level, that's how we can make like a macroscopic change.
All right. I like that. Sneed, what you got? What's your final thought? What's your final idea tonight?
Hey, bro, this is how much I need prison reform. This is my best friend calling from prison again.
Oh, real talk. So listen, I got you.
Bro, I just want us to be better as a culture, man. Much as we want to hold up other people accountable for what happens to us, let's hold each other accountable for what happens to us. And one of the things that I want to deal with in the next year as a culture is the pedophiles and the sex abuse that happens in our community that we protect, and we protect them.
That we don't talk about
at all. Exposing those people so that we can start having some real conversations about that.
So I heard one conversation about independence, one about protection. Okay, I'm loving that. And I'll give my last take here. So given what's been going on lately, I think that we in our culture, as African Americans and in the larger culture, we're at a crossroads. I think that trust in our institutions are dwindling. If you look at this summer, trust in police was at an all-time low. If you look at the election, part of the country feel like they can't trust the election system. If you just watch the Reddit stock phenomenon, we can see there's no trust in our financial systems. So we're having a problem in this country. And typically when you get to this point is when you start to see, even if you look at prior to the Civil War, you start to see a lot of the same things happening. And in that conversation, my idea is around protection as well. How are we going to find our way as a community through this when two big parties are fighting and neither of them really have your best interest? How are you going to navigate your way through? So that's my final thought of the night. This is the Idea Exchange with two hometown friends of mine. You'll definitely hear from us again. We want to thank you for your time. Sam Sneed had to handle his business. Dara, thank you for your time. I'm Dwayne Barnes, and we'll do this again, y'all. As they say, as the big homie said, thanks for coming out. God bless and good night. And more importantly, let's get this money and let's make a difference. All right. I'm about to end the live.